In May 2014, fatal anti-China protests erupted in Vietnam after China deployed an oil rig in waters around the Paracel Islands within Hanoi's exclusive economic zone. Protesters smashed businesses and anything that appeared of Chinese origin, forcing Beijing to charter flights to evacuate nearly 300 citizens, including 100 injured. The violence resulted in at least 21 deaths, with China sharply criticizing Vietnam's handling of the protests. Professor Huynh, let me come to you first. So, as we said, this year marks the 10th anniversary of those protests. Tell us why the feelings were so strong against China.
Let me start a little bit more about this case in 2014. So at that time, China illegally deployed oil rigs in Vietnam exclusive economic zones. And again, there's some protest that's trying to burn down Chinese companies in the southern region. And even there's a Vietnamese protester that they try to they try to attack the Chinese employees and workers in the southern region. And on those, the Vietnamese government, they step in, they encourage them to stay calm down, try to be prudent. And even they arrested so many people. However, there are an exodus of people, with Chinese people fleeing to regional countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, China, and even Cambodia. So the sentiments among the Vietnamese people about China has been, I must say, that is kind of negative recently because of China aggression in South China Sea. Yeah.
And so when you see the Philippines now, which seems to be the country that has the greatest number of clashes with China, you know, you obviously, as a Vietnamese and having lived through that, you understand the sort of, you know, the anger, the hurt, and the nationalism that it arouses.
I would say that the Vietnamese people they have sympathies for the Philippines because we both a smaller country compared to China in the South China Sea. And another reason is that we have been intimidated by China for quite a long time due to the Chinese leaders' aggression in the South China Sea and the ambition to dominate the South China Sea with the 9 dust line. And recently we have the 10 dust line, a kind of expansion in the South China Sea. And the Vietnamese people, they are kind of really supportive for the Philippines' behaviors and Philippines' transparency and counter-attack against China in the South China Sea.
Okay, and maybe there's some room for cooperation between the two countries there. Ronan, let's talk about, you know, whether feelings have changed, what the situation is, and now between Vietnam and China in the South China Sea.
So I want to go back to 2014 a little bit to emphasize that besides the controversy surrounding the oil rig, other things also came to mind. For example, the poor labor conditions in Chinese-owned factory during the time, and also a significant trade imbalance in 2014 also contribute to the Vietnamese outrage. Okay, now moving back to 2024.
So that was the grassroots anger. Yeah.
So now, if for the past decade, I would say that what's happened in South China Sea hasn't really changed. So you can still see a very, very, you know, heated sort of national sentiment toward China on the negative light. People feeling that, you know, their country were bullied by China, and then, you know, Chinese basically use military militia and all sorts of harassment tactics to harass, you know, Vietnamese farmers. Fishermen, basically that sort of, you know, fit into the negative feeling toward China and sometimes even Chinese people as a whole.